Hi friends, this is Sarvajang here. Welcome to my networking channel. Hope all are doing good. And today the topic I am going to discuss about how to configure IPv6 RIP next generation protocol in a Fortigate firewall. So RIP protocol you use it for IP version 4 and for IPv6 we'll use RIP next generation RIPng. So this I am going to show you how to configure the RIP next generation protocol in a Fortigate firewall. So as per the architecture I connected three firewall. So firewall 1 and 2 are connected by physical port 1 and firewall 2 and 3 physical port 2. So these two interfaces will be in the subnet 2001 colon 111 and this will be in the entirely different subnet 2002 colon 111. So for connecting between the two different subnets, I need to configure a policy as well as a routing information protocol RIPng. Okay. So these two things are mandatory for the communication between the two different subnets. Okay. So first let us quickly configure the directly connected interfaces with the IPv6 address, then we'll configure the RIPng protocol and the policy. Okay, so for that I have configured already in a notepad. Okay, so it will be easy to, so if you want to configure multiple interfaces, so this will be quicker and also it will save the time. Okay, so the command for configuring the interfaces config system interface edit port 1. Since you are configuring IPv6, it is config IPv6 followed by the IPv6 address. So the command is set IPv6 address 2001 colon 111 colon 1 and then set IP6 allow access ping is for allowing the ping communication. So let us now configure with this script, so it is easy, we can configure the directly connected interfaces. Okay, so now let us copy this interface, copy this and let us paste it on the first firewall, log in with the credentials. Okay, so now let us paste it on the first firewall and it's already saved. Now we end, it will save the configuration, show system interface port 1. Okay, so what I have done is I have done edit port 1 config IP version 6 and I configure this command IPv6 address, then I allow the ping access. So now let us do a ping to the directly connected interface, this interface. So I'm able to ping the interface. So similar way, let us configure the second firewall. It has two directly connected interfaces. So let us configure port 1 with this IPv6 address and port 2 with this IPv6 address using this script. Okay. So config system interface edit port 1. I'm going to edit only the IPv6 address. Okay. So that is port 2. Let us copy this and let us paste it on the second firewall. Okay, just save the configuration. And for the second port, that is port 2, the IP is different, 2002 colon 111 colon 1, right? So let us edit the details. Port 2 is 2002 colon 111 1 and the port is 2, second port, right? So let us copy this and let us put it on the second firewall. Okay, so now let us do show system interface port 1. This is the IPv6 address and for port 2 it is 2002. So let us ping both of this, execute ping 6. I am able to reach, and also the second thing. So these two interfaces I am pinging, I am able to ping. So now let us switch to the third firewall and let us configure this IPv6 address on port 2. Okay, so go here to, then let us quickly copy this and paste it on the third firewall, admin. Now let us copy it, paste it. Okay, so now let us view the configuration, show system interface port 2. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to ping the remote interface from the firewall 3 and from firewall 1 I'm going to ping the remote interface. This is only for checking the connectivity. Okay, so execute ping 6 and the command is 2002 colon 1. I'm able to reach, right? And also let us do a ping to this interface from firewall 1. So this also I'm able to reach. So we are done with the first set of configuration. Second thing, let us configure the policy. So I already told how to create a configure a IPv6 policy, since we have to allow the communication between these two different subnets in case of Fortigate firewall. So we have to allow both the ways, from port 1 to port 2 and from port 2 to port 1. So that also I create the script in such a way This is the script config firewall policy 6 is the syntax edit 1. So this is for making the first entry, and the source interface is port 1 and the destination interface is port 2, and source address and the destination address I simply specified all, and schedule is always okay. So if you want to set on a specific schedule, I can do service. We can also custom, you can do a customized service like ICMP version 6 or ICMP, or here I have specified as all, and the action is accept. Okay, so let us now create the first policy from port 1 to port 2 communication. Just copy and paste it. Okay, just do in, it will save the configuration. So the command to view is show firewall policy 6. So this is the first policy I created from port 1 to port 2. Now let us create a second policy from port 2 to port 1 communication. So the source interface will be port 2 and the destination interface will be port 1. Only that thing I have to edit, and I have to make a second rule. So edit 2. This is a second entry, second rule. Okay. So now let us copy this and paste it. So this is a second rule for allowing from port 2 to port 1, that is source interface, destination interface, and source address and destination address I specified as all, schedule is always, service all, and the action is accept. Okay, just copy it and just paste it on the second firewall. Okay, we are done with the configuration. So now let us view the policy. Show firewall policy 6, since it is IPv6. So for IPv4 it is policy, for IPv6 it is policy 6. Just enter. So you can see the two policy from port 1 to port 2 and from port 2 to port 1. So we are done with the configuration. So now let us ping the remote address, remote interface from this port 1 to port 3. 2002:111:1. So still is unreachable. Why? Because I already told we have done with the interfaces and the policy commands configuration. Only thing is pending is we have to configure the RIPng as a routing protocol for this communication between the entirely different subnets. Either I have to configure a static route. So here I am going to configure a RIPng routing protocol. So then it will automatically identify the remote network through this particular routing protocol. Okay. So let us go here. I have to configure on all these three firewalls. The command is config router RIPng. Okay. Then the second is config neighbor. And let us make a first entry. That means I'm adding a first neighbor. The command is set IP6 followed by the IPv6 address. So this is the address, right? So let us copy this. So this is the address. Just copy it and paste it. Okay. So let us do. Okay, this is the first address I'm just doing. And okay, sorry, it is like 2002, it is 2001 for the corresponding thing interface, right? So you have to specify the directly connected interface. So just I am doing this as set IP6 address 2001. Okay, set IP6 and just save the configuration. So still one more thing is pending. You have to set the interface. Okay, so the let us config, so router RIPng. Okay, then we have to do config neighbor. Okay, then we have to make a first entry, then specify the neighbor address, set IP6 and followed by this address 2000:1. Okay, and then we have to specify the interface, which interface is port 1. Okay, so port 1, that is the first interface. And also one more thing is pending is we have to configure an interface command. Okay, so go to config interface, then edit port 1. So which interface I'm enabling, so you have to specify this port 1. And now let us save the configuration. So I have done the configuration from the firewall 1. So router RIPng. So this is the configuration we did. Config router RIPng neighbor edit 1 and the IP6 address. What address is that directly connected address? Then we have to specify the port. Then also we have to configure the interface, and we have to specify which interface I'm enabling this particular protocol. These are the only thing. Now let us switch to the second firewall and let us enable the routing protocol RIPng. So config router RIPng. Okay, config neighbor, and let us make a first entry. What is the first entry? Is set IP6 address is 2000. What is this address? Two address or this interface I have to specify. So 2001:111:2, and also let us specify the interface. So this is mandatory. because these two are different interface, right? So port 1 and then do a next. So that means I'm adding a second neighbor, edit 2, that's second entry. Then set IP6, okay, 2002 colon 1111 colon 1. Okay, that means this interface, and set the interface is port 2. And also now what you have to do is we have to configure the interface, and we have to specify which interface I'm enabling the routing information protocol. Just do config interface edit port 1. Okay, and the next is edit port 2. Only that thing is mandatory. Just save the configuration. I hope you're following this. So show router RIPng. So this is a command I did. Okay, so like config router RIPng, then I enable the neighbor. First neighbor is this interface, directly connect interface, and the second neighbor is this interface. Okay, then we have to specify which interface I enable. Then what we have to do is config interface and set the port 1 and port 2. So that means I'm just enabling on the RIPng protocol on port 1 and port 2. That is the only thing you have to do it. Okay, so now let us go to the third firewall. Similar way, you have to configure the RIPng as a routing protocol. So admin port 1, okay, config router RIPng, okay, and let us configure the neighbor statement. Edit 1 is for making the first entry, set IPv6 address, directly connected address 2002 colon 1111 colon 2. Okay, so then one more thing is we have to set the interface, which interface I'm enabling, right? Set interface port 2. Okay, so then end, and also now we have to specify the interface, config interface. Okay, then we have to edit the port, which port 2. Port 2 is added. So we are done with the configuration. Now let us view the configuration. Show router RIPng. So this is a configuration. Config router RIPng, config neighbor, edit the first entry, making a first entry, and the corresponding IPv6 address and the port. And also we have to specify the interface command, config interface. So this command is mandatory, otherwise you can't, the RIPng will not identify the remote networks. Okay, so config interface edit port 2, then end. That's all. So now let us do a, now let us check whether the RIPng routing protocol is able to identify the remote networks. So how to check is get router. Okay, so get router info6 routing table. That's a simple command. So now you're able to see that means it already learned the remote network via this RIPng as a routing protocol. 2002 colon, and this administrative distance is 120 via this and the port 1. This is a link local address. Similarly, let us check from port 2. Okay, so get router info6 routing table. It already learned the remote networks. That means we should be in a position to ping now the remote networks. Let us ping the port 1. Let us ping this remote destination network. From port 3, let us ping the remote destination network. Okay, so execute ping 6 followed by the remote network. Okay, 1. So I'm able to reach. Okay, that means it is learning. 2 also I'm able to reach. Similar way from port 3. The command is execute, ping is for IPv4 and ping 6 is for IPv6 command. Okay, so this, so I'm able to reach the remote network. And also we can also check this by diagonalize IPv6 route list. So I can check this also. You can show this entire list of route, what are things it learned. It will show the entire list of route. Or the best way to check is we can check the get router info6 routing table. So this is a way we can check this. And also we can check by get router info6 RIP. We can also check as interface. So right click interface port 2. So this way you can also check like this also. Then port 2 already is enabled, and this is IPv6 address and the link local address. Similarly, let us go to the first firewall, get router info6 RIP interface and the port 1. So we're able to see here, right? So this is how we can configure the RIPng routing protocol in a Fortigate firewall. So three things are mandatory. First, we have to configure the directly connected interfaces with the IPv6 address. Second, we have to create two policy. First policy for allowing the communication from port 1 to port 2, and the second policy for allowing communication from port 2 to port 1. And the third thing, we have to configure the RIPng as a routing protocol. That's all about this video. So I hope you enjoy this video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more videos. Thanks and have a wonderful day. Thank you.